The CryptoAPI vulnerability is not just being used to spoof certificates for TLS connections.
Yeah, hi Manish. I'm just wondering if there's been a lot of discussion lately about the impacts of the disclosure of the CryptoAPI vulnerability that just recently.
Yeah, so a lot of the reporting, it's CryptoAPI CVE 2020-0601. So a lot of that reporting has been about spoofing the certificates for TLS connections at different websites. But what's also an option for one of the bad guys is you can spoof the code signing certificate as like a legitimate organization to escalate privileges, right? So what happens is, on an unpatched machine, you open an application, and then you might get the little pop-up from that user account control. It's like a blue banner if it's like a trusted certificate from a trusted publisher, and I guess blue means it's all okay. But if it's an untrusted publisher, an unknown publisher, it's a yellow banner. But I guess one of the things that you can do because of this vulnerability is that you can spoof it, and you can put in Microsoft the same details of a legitimate Microsoft certificate or any other large trusted publisher, and spoof that. And then when you get that little pop-up, it'll be blue. And if you're conditioned to just go hit OK when you see the blue pop-up, then I guess any sort of malware can take advantage of that. Because it's a certificate, you can't, and if you're using a certificate from a trusted publisher like Microsoft, you can't just go and, untrust all of them, right? Because there are legitimate applications that use it. So it's a little difficult without actually, patching your system. I think the exploit, because it is a certificate, you can't really do much on unpatched systems, and I think that's one of the issues here. But the good thing is that a lot of I think Google, in their latest version, they're able to detect whether it's one of those spoof certificates, so they'll block it, and that's more of the TLS connection things. But hopefully there's some more awareness and some more protections in place to detect actually the code signing, spoof code signing certificate, and I think that's kind of probably what's next. Though as this vulnerability continues on, I think a lot of the malware writers will start signing it with these spoof certificates. If you're a small company, or if you're just an individual and you get one of these, you get a malware, via email or whatever, you're probably not going to be aware enough to realize that this Microsoft certificate could be a spoof certificate, and you wouldn't, how would you know? So it's kind of somewhat dangerous, probably maybe even more dangerous than like exploiting the TLS connections via spoof certificates, right? Because there are protections in place, right, through like the Chrome browser, AV, and things like that might be able to detect some of these things, but I guess it's a mixed bag somewhat.
Yeah, this is definitely an advanced vulnerability, I would say.
Right.
It's scary to think that you might be the recipient of one of these, because basically, like you said, you might rely on the strategy of like whitelisting things or only executing code that's signed. And if the checking system, the system that checks if the code is signed properly, is broken, then you're going to make bad decisions. Or a lot of people probably even use some sort of automation here.
Right.
Make sure, can you run this or not? Or maybe there's some sort of a policy. And it unfortunately would allow something like this to execute. But at the same time, as bad as this is, I'm actually quite happy that we're not like 10 to 15 years ago, where there was not like good patching practices, and vulnerabilities were released, and sometimes it would take a really long time to release patches. But now, from the moment a critical vulnerability is issued, sometimes the vendor already has the patch because they might have been working with a security researcher already, or the vendor might already, like vendors like Microsoft, might have already observed something strange going on in the wild, which I know they probably do stuff like that, and they look for like, hey, why is this code breaking? Why is this not working correctly? and they're looking to patch that as just part of their normal
Right.
existence as a software company. So it's encouraging, even though this vulnerability is terrible and everyone should patch it as fast as possible. I'm kind of encouraged that we are able to execute quickly on these patches, and this things are available.
That's the key, though, right? It's patch. I mean, we have a patch for this. If people don't think about patching, then they should, and they need to be aggressive. Especially in a corporation or a business needs to put these patches on fast.
Yes. Yeah, and again, this is such an interesting, if you look at the details of this, how you get around all of this, it's like really intricate and very interesting. And obviously someone took a lot of care to make sure it works to exploit the things. And it's quite scary for sure. But again, with the patching, like John said,
Sure.
there's a way to overcome that. And I think, honestly, like most corporations who are smart in the space now, or most companies or enterprises, probably do have mature vulnerability management programs now, that this is just part of, hey, there's another vulnerability, and it's very critical, and we must get it out now. So I think by now, hopefully, most companies, especially large ones, have a program that's mature and able to take this in as fast as it comes out. I'm as bad as this one is, I'm very encouraged where the space has been with cybersecurity.
Sure, yeah.
Where we've come as an industry.
Right, and with all the, I guess over the last, I want to say decade of pushing the layered defenses, all of that with the patching, I think that's also something that's helpful.
Yep, exactly. And everyone takes it, I think, seriously, and again, the vendors take it seriously. I think, like 15, 20 years ago, it would have been an uphill battle to even get the vendor to say, hey, you know what, there's a problem here. But now I think everybody is kind of like with the program, so to speak.
Right.
We're all on board.
Right.
I still remember, I think it was SQL Slammer or something like that. I remember, the patch was out, and then like 6 months later, we actually saw the exploit, and I'm thinking, if we just patched it 6 months ago, I think how many people wouldn't have had this problem.
Yeah, and I think WannaCry, even as I think was it 2018, 2017, WannaCry like reinforced that for us and kind of reminded us, hey, you gotta do patches, because if you don't, this is the problem. But I think, again, for the most part, I think most people have gotten the message now who are responsible for protecting systems, major systems.
Sure.
This whole method was created for making sure that an application is exactly what it purports to be. It's signed by Microsoft. That means if you trust Microsoft, you can execute this, and maybe there's no side effects. Unfortunately, the mechanism for verifying that the signature is correct can be overcome.